It's time to explore the world according to Glenn. I'm Kevin Jacobsen. Glenn Close is my favorite actress, and this show is all about exploring the career of one of the finest actors of her generation. Each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we dive into one of Glenn's movies, TV shows, or stage productions, going chronologically through her career, discussing her performance, and assessing the project itself. And today, we are talking Glenn's performances in two TV movies of 2001, The Ballad of Lucy Whipple and South Pacific.
Eight-time nominee Glenn Close, motherfuckers.
My guest today is returning to the show after he joined me for the very first episode where we discussed the world according to Garp. We've now reached the 21st century. He is a film critic and podcaster through Next Best Picture and Awards Watch and hosts the Halloweeners Horror Movie Podcast. Welcome back to the show, Cody Dericks.
Hello. Yes, we've reached the 21st century, but these are very, let's say, backwards-facing films we're about to discuss.
Yes, you could certainly say that in many respects. But to not go too backwards, we're going to look forwards for my introductory question for you. You have already told me your origin story with Glenn, so I'll ask you this alternative question, which is, Cody, if you had the power to cast Glenn Close in a future film, any film, what is the genre and what kind of role would you cast her in?
So not to sound like a parody version of myself, but I really would love to see her lean more into a horror type of genre play. I know she did The Deliverance.
She sure did.
That was something. I feel like watching Weapons, I love what Amy Madigan is doing in that movie. Obviously, I hope she can take the Oscar this year. But I think Glenn could have done something with a role like that, if not that exact same one. I feel like there's actually some similarities between her Deliverance character performance and Amy Madigan as Aunt Gladys, just in a very different, let's say, tenor, let's say, perspective, dialogue she's allowed to say or permitted to say. So I think something like that would be fun. And we've seen her do, grand, screamy performances before. Cruella de Vil is borderline, I'm not going to say it's a horror performance, obviously, but it's kind of that villainous, ghoulish, demonic type character that I would like to see her do.
Yeah, devilish, you could say.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Nobody's ever said that before.
I know this is like breaking new ground, but you could say she's a bit of a devil. But
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, but I agree. I love seeing her in this horror space. I mean, I think even Wake Up Dead Man certainly plays into some of those darker, like gothic-ish tropes in a way that I think really suits her. And so if she were to continue down this lane, I think that would be very exciting. And she doesn't have to
definitely
chase Oscar, as a lot of people, including myself, may want. It's just she is having fun at this stage in her career.
Right.
If it comes.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're recording this before the nomination, so who knows what might happen. But I doubt she's getting nominated for Wake Up Dead Man. But if she were to, it would undoubtedly be my favorite performance of that Oscar recognized of hers in my lifetime.
Wow. Okay.
So
yeah,
I think something like that would be not a bad idea.
Well, are there specifics about this horror movie though, before we get too into these movies? Like, horror is a broad category, as we know.
I see a turban. I see a crystal ball.
You see Norma Desmond
draped. I see Norma Desmond. I see draped fabrics. I see an accent that is unplaceable but specific.
Sounds about right. I love it. I love it already.
Thank you.
Great. Well, we are not talking about Glenn in that mode with these two movies we're talking about today, but I'm sure we will have interesting discussions nonetheless. We are talking two TV movies of Glenn from specifically the year 2001. So we are starting off with The Ballad of Lucy Whipple, and we won't spend as much time on this as we do with South Pacific, our other TV movie of the week, since South Pacific is, you could say, quite a bit more well-known. You could say it exists more than this movie does. But to start, this was a really big year for Glenn in terms of appearing very frequently on television, which she had done somewhat infrequently in the 90s. But now that we're in the early 2000s, it's about to be a whole lot more, much like we've seen with other older actresses. Once they reach their 50s, the film roles start to become fewer and fewer, and a lot of them find great work in TV, which is the case for Glenn here. So Ballad of Lucy Whipple is directed by Jeremy Kagan. This is an adaptation of the Karen Cushman novel of the same name, which came out in 1996. Glenn had used her producing powers to snatch up the rights to adapt this to film through her company Trillium Productions. And as with pretty much all of the films produced through Trillium, she is the star. So that's how she came to be one of the lead roles here. Her co-lead, Jenna Malone, was on the rise at this time, having already been nominated for a Golden Globe for a film called Hope. She'd been in Stepmom and Contact and For Love of the Game, so very much an in-demand child star at this time. So Ballad of Lucy Whipple is set in the mid-1800s and follows a mother and daughter. Glenn plays Arvella, the strong-willed mother, and Jenna Malone plays her daughter, California. California also has two siblings, Butte and Prairie, and they all travel from Massachusetts to the town of Lucky Diggins, California, a gold mining town where Arvella has answered the call to run the town's boarding house. We see how California is restless, and she eventually decides to rename herself Lucy. And she meets some outsiders and befriends them, including this girl of the forest and also a recently freed black man. And the story mostly follows her coming of age as she grows to love the town, while Arvella gradually falls in love with this traveling preacher guy. So, yeah, that's the gist. Cody, thoughts on The Ballad of Lucy Whipple? Have you heard of this movie before this? And what do you think of Glenn's performance here?
I wrote this movie, Kevin. Did you not see my name in the
wow.
credits?
Was it a
I was
pseudonym?
9 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's something about a title that is the noun of woman's name that always kind of makes me go, oh, we're telling a very old-fashioned type story here. I mean, obviously there's the Testament of Anne Lee, the Ballad of Lucy Whipple.
Right.
She doesn't do much singing for a film with a song type in its title, but
Right.
you know, this movie, I thought it would be kind of a little bit slow and disinteresting, and I was correct in that fear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the worst thing I've ever seen in the world. It feels very harmless. It feels very Hallmark, very perhaps substitute teacher rolling in a TV to your classroom, your history classroom maybe. It also feels very linked to Sarah Plain and Tall.
Yep.
Very similar vibes. So I wonder if maybe that was Glenn chasing a similar type of success from that TV venture of hers.
Yes, I very much had that thought as well. This could very well easily be from the world of Sarah Plain and Tall, The Ballad of Lucy Whipple. That entire
the Plain and
title.
Tall-niverse.
Right. Yes, a Sarah Plain and Tall story, saga, whatever. Yeah, so
Mystery.
a mystery for real. Yeah, I can't say I love this movie per se, but after watching this and South Pacific, I did come away feeling like this is a much better execution of its intentions than that is.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I watched South Pacific second, anticipating liking that better.
Sure.
That was not the case.
Right. So peaked early here. Yeah, I think the sort of Old West atmosphere and the performances, like everything feels relatively in sync to me in a way that South Pacific not as much. And I feel like I can sit down and watch this and feel like, yes, this is the Hallmark Hall of Fame vibe. It's cheesy. The music is dated by our standards, at least. It's very earnest, like aggressively earnest. But I think it generally comes together as like a coming of age story, and kind of first and foremost, a great showcase for Jenna Malone, who this is obviously her character's story more than Glenn's, but I would say she really steals the movie in terms of she's just so captivating. And I kept thinking of some of like Saoirse Ronan's early work, watching her, that sort of like pluckiness and the stubbornness, and like even all the way up to like Little Women for Saoirse Ronan. Like there's a similar energy here of like a little more adventurous, like independent girl who has a mind of her own and really like has her convictions. Like there's something here that I did latch onto with her performance. Glenn, I think, is playing in familiar territory.
Yeah, this is Jenna Malone's
Yeah.
story, and both the actress and the character. You know, it
Yeah.
really feels like the type of story you might read in an early chapter book, perhaps in elementary school,
Yeah.
about a plucky young girl just trying to make it with her mom, who she doesn't quite see eye to eye with, but eventually they align in some ways or they make some compromises. I think Glenn gets some showcasey moments later in the movie when there's some heavy dramatics kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But you get to see Glenn really dig into those classic, emotive reactions. She's stoic and quiet at first, and then eventually gets some good classic throaty cries, which I love to see it.
Love a throaty cry. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. To that point, I think tonally it is all over the place. Quite frankly, like I agree with some critics that I was reading that seems like it's not quite confident in like what kind of movie it wants to be and what audience it's kind of intending. Like it is this plucky young adult chapter book kind of story coming of age, but it can also feel like very adult at other points. There was definitely a lot of complaints I was reading too about how episodic it feels and how it kind of feels like it's just episodes tied together very loosely. And
Correct.
I don't
Yes.
disagree with that. Yeah, I think again it's okay on the whole, but yeah, Jenna is really what makes it worth watching. And I think Glenn is really serving in a much more supporting role here and helping along Lucy's story, but certainly well cast in this role. It's, to your point, very familiar to audiences who had seen Sarah Plainenthal to see her as this kind of like forthright woman who doesn't back down and can be a little too hard-nosed at times. So it's, yeah, very like not breaking any new ground, but I can definitely see, just based on her taste with how much she loved Sarah Plainenthal and enjoyed also making those family-friendly movies for Disney around this time. She was just very invested in these stories for younger viewers and families, and a lot of that obviously has to do with raising her daughter, Annie, at the time. So all of it makes sense, even though I'm not really like getting a lot beyond what I already have seen from her.
Yeah, I guess you could call it a fairly altruistic or
Yeah.
empowering story for a young girl to watch. So I can see why
Yeah.
Glenn might want to put her name and talent behind this.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it really is like, to your point though, about like the Sarah Plainenthal of it all, is her literally coming from New England to
Hmm.
a kind of rough and tumble town, you could say, rough around the edges sort of community, and sort of fixing it up a bit.
Yeah, the town's called Lucky Diggins,
Yes, correct.
and they all pronounce it Diggins. It's not Diggings. There's an apostrophe there in the proper name.
Correct. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's important. And speaking of names, actually, we should talk about Jenna Malone's character here being California Morning.
Yes, so like you said, it's the children are California, Butte, and Prairie.
Yeah.
Okay, so Glenn's character used an atlas to name her children, I guess. That was where she got her inspiration. California Morning, that's Mama, that's a drag queen. I don't know what to tell you.
Welcome
That
to
is
the
a drag.
stage.
That's a drag.
California
Welcome to the
Morning.
stage. California
Yeah.
Morning.
Mhm.
Fleetwood Mac covers only I'm seeing for her.
Yeah,
Mamas and the Papas perhaps.
sure. Yeah. I mean, again, I know she hates her name, but like it's pretty fierce. Like I do like it a lot.
Yeah.
Even though it's
You want
odd.
to be Lucy?
Right.
Yeah.
Lucy is very plain, all due respect. But
Lucy Whipple. I don't want to talk to her. California Morning Whipple. Here's a seat at the
she's got
table
some
for you.
stories. Yes.
She's got some stories.
Yeah. Do we want to talk any about just the overall arc of the story, or I guess even any pinpointing any scenes within this?
Do we want to talk about the movie?
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the movie?
Yeah, I think there's a strong dramatic turn once Butte falls in the river.
Yes.
That's where Glenn really gets to showcase, like I said, some of those emotive moments. Up to that point, she just kind of is sassy and delights in telling the men of the town no. That seems to be her defining character trait, is just delighting in being the person that gets to put these men in their place, which is fun to watch for Glenn.
Always fun, always a delight. It brings me back to her energy in the paper. There's just that whenever she is with a group of men and gets to be like telling them off or whatever in her own way. I always delight in that. And when Butte ends up getting sick and then dying, that is very sad, and she feels guilty there because he died after he went out looking for gold so that she wouldn't have to work so hard, which really allows her to get something substantial to work with. And the way she cries, sort of like that guttural feeling, that almost like panic attack crying when she's talking to the preacher, I found that to be a very effective scene, and one of those things where this is why you cast someone of Glenn's caliber to deliver on that kind of emotion. The pastor also suggesting that she needs to connect more to Lucy leads to another really great tender scene between the two of them that I took note of for both of them, where they're in the room, the tent, I think at that point, which is another very tender scene where they talk about why this happened and talk about God and all these weighty things. And I love that look in Glenn's eye when she tells Lucy, when you see God, you can ask him why, because Arvella doesn't have the answers as to why this happened. But there's just something very evocative in what she does there that I found really striking.
Yeah, there's always something exciting to watch a character who makes a point to be bottled up in their emotions or in what they're revealing, finally get the chance to break through, and you see it almost take them by surprise. I feel like Glenn is really good at doing that type of emotive turn. We see her do that a few times.
Yeah. There's another part where they're, I think she's kind of talking about why she left and why she is distrustful of even religious people, being like, my husband wasn't allowed to be like buried by the church because he wasn't a religious man, and that's why she's mistrustful. There's just a lot going on, that swirling of emotions inside as she describes that to this pastor. And I also really enjoy her line where she says, I have no use for religious men. They leave a bad taste in my mouth like mushrooms. Good read.
Yeah, you don't see people speaking about religion in that way. Both movies made during this time and about this time period. That did take me by surprise. So points to you, Lucy Whipple.
Points to you, Lucy Whipple. Also, later on, I did cheer when Wilford Brimley showed up as a judge.
Of course.
Because he has surprisingly worked with her on quite a few movies, including all the way back to The Stone Boy. A very
of course,
yeah, everyone knows. They're in The Natural together. I always wonder what kind of relationship they had over the years. But anyway, he has the longest sideburns in the world and his bald head. It's quite a look. But that's where we get to like this sort of almost kangaroo court type of situation, where this forest girl Annie, her father is found murdered, and at first they blame this black man, of course, Bernard, but then they blame Annie's mother, and they have a trial, and I guess more of like a group discussion really than a trial, where
they just talk it out.
They're just talking it out. And yeah, Lucy's like taken over as like witness and defense attorney, of course, somehow, and they're just like, sure, go for it. Plead your case. And she's able to win the whole town over because she's like, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt that the wife killed him. But then that's also where Lucy reveals that, she reveals to Annie that she knows that she shot him. So essentially she's using her critical thinking skills for the greater good. So you go, Lucy Whipple.
Yeah, that scene felt very chapter book for 9 to 11-year-old girls. It's like you too can have the ability to make change if you just are true to yourself and strong in your convictions and smart and well-read, which I'm not going to oppose that message.
And of course we do get a fire that breaks out, which I'm like, what is this, a Sarah Playing a Tall movie? Because we always got to have a natural disaster. But yeah, basically burns down the whole camp and forces everyone to pack up shop and leave. Unfortunately, there's a point in the end here where I did unintentionally laugh at the transparent sort of echoey vision that Lucy has of her father.
What the hell was that? Yeah. That came out of nowhere. That didn't even make sense with the type of movie we were watching at all.
No. And he's kind of telling her about how, like, I don't know, life is all about change or whatever kind of platitudes that she needs to hear.
Yeah, as I told you before we started recording, I was recovering from food poisoning watching this movie. And that moment did make me feel like I was truly hallucinating. I did do a temperature check on myself after that. No fever. So it was
Well,
just the movie.
yeah, and I can confirm that did in fact happen. So,
Great.
yeah, some odd choices within this movie, I would say. And we also have this parallel story of Arvella kind of realizing, oh, I might actually like this pastor guy, and he asks her to be his wife, which she's like, sure. And in the end, like she really doesn't put up a fight.
Positive,
Yeah,
enthusiastic response you want to make
yeah.
a proposal.
Like, I guess
Yeah,
so.
sure.
Yeah, might as well. And Lucy kind of resolves to just stay in this place where she builds a library and becomes like the town librarian and is a valued member of this little society. It's very sweet. It's very unassuming. Am I thinking about it very much after it's over? Not really, but I do hope that especially younger girls watching got something out of it.
I think I can say with confidence that we're probably giving this movie the deepest dive it's ever gotten.
Probably.
in the
Yes.
the 20 in the because it came out what 25 years ago, a quarter of a century ago.
Yep.
So Lucy Whipple lives to slay another day. I don't know what I'm saying.
Wow. Good for her. I did.
She does read. She reads the books.
Yeah. A few lines that I did just want to note before we move on that I did write down, even though like I don't have anything to say about them. I just found them either funny or interesting. There's one guy who says she should go back to Massachusetts. Haven't heard
That's
that
kinda
one
clever.
before. I like that.
How'd you
That's a
feel
good
about
read.
that as a New Englander? Did you want to
It's fine
keep that in your
because
pocket?
I'm not a Massachusettser. So,
There you go.
you know, we have a little bit of a rivalry at times with Massachusetts here in Connecticut. So,
I feel like you can claim that insult as your own if you ever pulled it out. I don't think any Lucy Whipple fans are gonna
Right.
accuse you of stealing.
now hold on. I heard that in a
Wait.
movie once.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. I saw a TV movie once starring Glenn Close.
Right. What else is there? There's something I think Butte tells Lucy, you talk like some show off from the city. Uck and puke.
Okay.
Also a read.
Uck and puke, both.
Uck and puke. Yes. Is there any, did you write down any notable lines for yourself?
I did.
Okay,
Yes, I
great.
wrote down one that Glenn says to. I didn't take the best note on this, so I'm guessing she
That's
says it
totally
to
fine.
California/Lucy. She says, "Lord, you are the spookiest child. Every tub has to learn how to stand on its own bottom sometimes."
Ain't that the truth?
So put that on a pillow.
Yeah, it's there's also a point where she dunks Lucy's book in water, which I was like, that's rude.
That's rude.
I did not care for that.
I just
Arvella.
wouldn't. Yeah, what the hell, Mom?
Yeah.
Did you notice who wrote the music for this? Because I was like, oh, the music's pretty good. It's like it's some Western music is always exciting to hear.
Nope.
Bruce Broughton, who I looked him up, was the composer of Alone Yet Not Alone. Remember that?
Oh my god. This makes all the sense in the world. Wow.
Yes. Famous Oscar factoid person
Yeah.
there.
He should have written a song for this movie called The Ballad of
fit.
Lucy Whipple. It's right there. Right?
It's right there.
Or Diane Warren could have written this and they would have made it into a feature film instead of a TV movie and she would have gotten a nomination for it.
She told it like a woman. She did. Yeah.
I would say so.
She give herself some applause, Lucy Whipple.
Wow. Somehow you do, Lucy
Just
Whipple.
about to do that.
Dear me. Okay.
Oh dear me.
Oh, dear me, Lucy Whipple.
Dear me, Lucy.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else about this. Like I said, solid right down the middle. Not really aimed for me, perhaps, but
Yeah. Again, if I'd seen this in history class in elementary school,
Yeah.
I probably would have had very little opinion about it, to be honest.
you would have sat there patiently, like a good boy, like a good student, and been like, okay,
I would have sat my ass down and listened. Yep.
good for you. Well, on that note, speaking of listening, I think we should move on to our main topic here, which is South Pacific. So, South Pacific, yes, an adaptation of the 1949 musical of the same name by Rodgers and Hammerstein, which was a huge success at the time and a big Tony sweeper, winning in all 4 acting categories, which I just learned this week.
Yep. The only show to ever do that in the Tony history.
Not even Hamilton. Love
Not
it.
even Hamilton.
Wow. And There was a film adaptation made in 1958 starring Mitzi Gaynor, which was also a big success, but not the most universally beloved per se. So this all leads up
Yeah.
to the late 90s when Lawrence D. Cohen and Michael Gore decided it was time to update South Pacific for a new generation and sort of work out the kinks and make it work for a more cinematic minded audience, essentially, at the turn of the century. There's a whole article about this on Playbill where I got all this information. Essentially, they wanted to reconstruct and deconstruct the musical to make it flow better and have more impact visually than what the stage show was capable of and what the 1958 film didn't quite do, in their estimation at least. And apparently Glenn was their first choice to play the lead role of Nellie Forbush, knowing she was capable of handling both the dramatic arc of her character and could sing.
Okay.
South Pacific. I'll get into your thoughts in a minute.
Yeah.
I feel like you're itching to say something here.
I'm making a lot of faces.
Yes.
Yeah.
South Pacific, this is directed by Richard Pierce. It's set during World War II on an island in the South Pacific. Glenn plays Nellie, an American nurse from a small town who is generally optimistic about the war hopefully ending soon. She meets a French plantation owner named Emile, played by Rade Sherbadia, and the two gradually fall in love. Meanwhile, we have Harry Connick Jr. as Cable, a lieutenant in the Marines who arrives on the island on a mission to spy on Japanese ships. While he's there, he falls in love with Liat, played by Natalie Mendoza, the daughter of the tough local vendor named Bloody Mary, played by Lori Tan Chin. And things for Nellie and Emile get complicated when Nellie discovers that Emile has two children who are half Polynesian, which Nellie can't handle, feeling this prejudice she can't really explain, but feels nonetheless. So that's essentially the story. Oh, and it's a musical. So,
Oh, it's a musical.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cody, as I love to call you, you are a theater-loving person, which I swear is not a euphemism. It is not an insult in any way. It's just the fact of the matter. You do love theater. I know this about you. So anyway, would love to know your relationship to South Pacific, what you think of this adaptation, and what you think of Glenn's performance.
Yes, well, as a TLP, I've
Mm-hmm.
seen South Pacific on stage. There was a very wildly heralded revival in the late 2000s, starring Kelly O'Hara, and I saw that production. And South Pacific to me is a show that I think the music is so gorgeous. You know, that overture, even in this version of the film, which I think is not to preview my thoughts, good.
Mm.
The overture just sweeps you away. It is just beautifully composed, and in that production, actually, it was at Lincoln Center, and the overture, what they did was it was a thrust stage that extended out into the audience, and the thrust stage covered the orchestra. For the overture, they revealed the orchestra and lifted them up for the audience to see because it's so, renowned, this music, and the huge orchestra needed its moment in the spotlight. So I think most people would agree that the best thing about South Pacific is the music and the story, for 1949 when the musical came out, I would say is quite progressive,
Mm.
but I think now it just mostly exists as a time capsule for what progressive thinking looked like in the 1940s, which is why I think them trying to your point, deconstruct and reconstruct some aspects of it for this TV movie doesn't really work because I don't really think it's something you need to do because, again, it is very much a product of its time. And I think what seeing it on stage does is kind of lock it into that time. Like that revival didn't
Right.
touch the text at all. It was very much presenting it as is, and it was a wild success because of it. This version, I think the director does not seem to know what he's doing in terms of musical aspects of the film. The songs feel like an afterthought. I would not say they are well staged. I don't think they really do their job of advancing the story forward. They almost kind of halt everything that's happening and feel like something we have to get through rather than like the best part of watching a musical, which would be the musical numbers. And to that point, the location is pretty, but I don't know if it's super well shot. And I don't really think Glenn is right for this. So overall, I kind of found this to be pretty tough to get through.
I sadly can't disagree with you on pretty much all those points, except for the fact that I am actually a novice to South Pacific. I haven't even seen the 1958 film, honestly. I have never seen it on the stage. So, yeah, before this week, I would not be able to tell you a thing about this other than the setting and maybe some songs. So I went into
the setting, which is the title.
Yes. I had a vague idea of what this probably is. Let's put it that way. But I would not be able to tell you any of the characters or the plot. So I went into this pretty fresh, no real expectations other than this was a big splashy musical that vaguely gave me the vibe of From Here to Eternity, just based on like incidental information I knew about it, or like Sayonara, I guess, around that time too. And that is essentially what the feel of this is for me. It is the sweeping romantic melodrama that is set against the backdrop of war, which gives it the higher stakes, you know. And in the staging of it here, I think it does succeed in terms of updating for a network TV audience in 2001, where it is old-fashioned, but also it's moving at a relatively quick pace and feeling a little more naturalistic. On a technical level, I think with the production design, the costumes, the cinematography, I think that's all either competent or very good, very relatively immersive. Performance-wise and story-wise is where I have a lot more issues. Like, on a character level, I don't find a whole lot here of interest. It is kind of a standard learning your lesson sort of story about tolerance and overcoming these surface level differences and taking a chance on love and all these wonderful things. And the characters are very archetypal and don't really transcend those all that much. Like, Nellie is like the innocent who needs to learn to let go of her privilege, and Emil is like this lovable, roguish father figure in a way, and Bloody Mary is like that scene-stealing sort of local, and Liat is the love interest, and Cable is the dashing soldier. It's all very familiar. And again, that can be okay if the overall production is really eye-popping and that the musical sequences really dazzle you and sweep you in. But like you said, that's not really the case here. I think the staging, outside of maybe, I guess, like the Dame's opening number and the Wash That Man Right Out of My Hair number, like there's some creativity there, but like otherwise I don't get much. Like they feel out of place in this interpretation of the musical because it's trying to be so naturalistic, but then the musical sequences sort of just take you out and do feel sort of like you're saying a little obligatory to be like, this is what we have to do because it's South Pacific, rather than organic, as much as a musical can be organic.
Right. And I mean, the story, to your point, it is just about Nellie learning her lesson to be less racist, please.
Be a little less racist.
And
yeah.
the way the film positions it is as this like dramatic thing that she has to overcome, and in a way that I think is, to your point, almost trying to teach that lesson to the audience. And I don't know if a 2001 audience who's watching a musical on TV needs to really hear that lesson.
Sure.
But which is why on stage, which you can understand why that was a major sensation and even controversial in the 40s when it premiered in New York. And now it exists, again, like I said, as a kind of time capsule of what stood for progressivism at that time, of forward-thinking, politics. But the way the movie positions it, Glenn's character just spends like half the movie being so sad about being racist, which does not work for me in terms of making me want to root for her or care about her. She just is very upset about her bigotry, but not doing much to fix it.
It tears her up inside being so racist.
Yeah. She treats it like it's an allergy as opposed to something that she needs to fix in herself.
And then she just has to look at a few newspaper clippings of herself to be like, what have I been doing? I'm not racist.
I did not know what happened there. I literally rewound it 3 times because I thought I missed something, because she, to your point, she crumbles up a newspaper article about herself from her hometown, calling her a hero, I assume, and then opens it again, looks at her own picture, and kind of has an entire change of heart.
Yep. That's what you got to do. You just got to reconnect with your younger self and you'll become enlightened. That's what I learned. Yeah. But on a performance level, I do think it is a bit of a mixed bag. I think, Harry Connick Jr. is kind of bland, but sort of works in a way that I guess that character needs to be. He's like the dashing hero type. Lori Tanchin is a fun presence, but feels a bit thinly drawn, you could say. Rade is good, but sort of dull. And with Glenn, it's tricky, and it might be tricky to talk about this because I think she is generally giving a good performance and probably performing as well as Glenn Close can play this role, but she feels miscast ultimately.
Yeah, it's a problem. I know what you're about to say. It is rude, but she's too old for this.
Yeah,
It's a problem, especially because the character, I feel like you'd be possibly more forgiving or at least understanding if she's positioned as this small town girl from Arkansas who it's her first time really leaving her town and she has to face for the first time these people who are different from her.
right.
But this is a middle-aged woman. So I don't really feel much in the way of what the movie or the text wants you to feel, which is like maybe not pity, but like an understanding of where she's coming from, even if you don't agree with that. It
Right.
just feels misappropriated here.
Yeah, it's difficult for me because I think she's acquitting herself well enough, and she's clearly passionate about the material. She is also an executive producer on this, and she really, really wanted to do it. And I think you can feel her sincerity and her love of the story, but I think she just reads as a screen presence generally as too wise and too sharp even for the role of Nellie Forbush, like this innocent person. The way she inhabits even that first scene where she is like welcoming in the new nurses, like she seems like this wizened middle-aged woman who is welcoming younger women into the fold here. That's it. It narratively just starts you off in a way that doesn't feel like it flows with what the story will be, I guess.
No,
Yeah.
it's tough, and you don't want to be the person that it feels hack and borderline offensive to say that, but
Yeah.
it's a problem with the character itself. It's not
Right.
anything Glenn's doing, but
Yeah.
it becomes a problem with the character when you cast Glenn Close in this role. It affects the story that the film is trying to tell.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe if we were back in the Garp days, which we talked about, she would have read perhaps a little more cleanly in this role. But yeah, Glenn was in her early 50s when she made this. And yes, she has like a youthful, spry energy that works. But just, again, she reads as smarter than her character, which I think is a problem in certain roles. Like, she reads as someone who is rooted and grounded in a reality as opposed to Nellie being a little bit in the clouds at times when she's like going back and forth between wanting to wash that man right out of my hair and then like being on cloud nine after she has one conversation with him. So it's tough because I see the sincerity, but I feel like it's not the right fit. Just on a fundamental level.
It's even in the text of the song. Her first song is called "A Cockeyed Optimist," and it's her
Yeah.
espousing her self-declared naivete about the world. And I just don't get that from her performance, or even just her general energy,
Yeah, I mean
or
it's
Glenergy, if you will.
her energy, thank you. It's interesting to watch her though in this mode of being like this formidable and good-looking woman who a lot of men seem to like because that hasn't typically been her lane other than like some of her work in the 80s like a Jagged Edge or Fatal Attraction, but I think even if she feels miscast for what the character typically is, I think she's playing a version here where that sort of casual confidence is attractive. Like when she's later performing I think it's Honey Bun on stage.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real like confidence in how she's performing that is youthful to me watching her. So, she gets there at certain points. It's just not consistently.
Yeah, she sings the songs well. Her voice
Yeah.
actually sounds very similar to Mary Martin, who was the original
Mm.
performer who did it on Broadway, who is probably most famous to most people for being Peter Pan in the Peter Pan musical. So I see why they cast her. It makes sense on paper. You're looking for a major name who can sing, who looks right for the part, kind of, but I just think it was maybe 15 years too late, unfortunately.
Yeah. And in that song of like the cockeyed optimist, even looking at that as an example of where I think the musical aspect of this is flawed, just that staging is so plain, like it's a regular dialogue scene. And it's like she's talking with Emil, and then she sings a song about being a cockeyed optimist, and then just goes right back to talking. Like nothing really has changed. Very clumsy to me, you know?
You just don't, yeah, you just don't feel a desire for the characters to have to burst into song because the only way
No.
for them to continue expressing themselves as staged and shot, there's no reason for them to sing. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. I think to your point, some of the group musical numbers are kind of fun. Wash That Man Right Out of My Hair is fine. And the music is well performed by the orchestra,
Yeah.
so I'll give credit to them. The orchestrations are lovely. Some of the arrangements are the best I've heard of these songs, and I've heard many versions of them. But the performances of them, and more specifically the staging of them, is just miscalculated.
Yeah, it's tough, like you said, like the individual scenes, it just does not work for me most of the time. Group wise, sure, that seems like they're putting some effort into it. I think, do we want to talk any about the chemistry of Nellie and Emil and these two actors? And I don't know how aged up Emil is based on other editions of this.
He's generally supposed to be a little bit older. I think the
Okay, yeah.
vibe is he's supposed to be more established. He
Yeah.
already had a wife and two kids who are almost 10, it looks like. He
Hmm.
is a successful businessman. He had a history. So the vibe is I think he's supposed to be about at
Yeah.
least 50, maybe 20 years older than Nellie.
Okay.
But they're the same age here,
Yeah.
which again makes the interaction strange because it doesn't feel like a young woman discovering something new, a new world that she hadn't been aware of. It feels like two people, two peers coming
Yeah.
together, and one is just severely more enlightened than the other.
Right. So, like, that is the interpretation in a way of this film, which is why I don't know how much I can hold against it in terms of what it usually is.
Yeah, for me, it's not even like a case of, oh, I saw it done differently and done better. To me, it
Hmm.
doesn't work in the text of the film as
No.
presented in this film. There's nothing to really, there's no, from what I remember, no rewriting or readjusting to account for Nellie being not an ingenue.
Right.
It just is presented as is, and you're just supposed to go along with it, which doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that as well. The like the twin soliloquies duet they have, which is then followed by Some Enchanted Evening, that is even staged in a very dull way to me that I can't say I was particularly engaged. Like it's mostly just like medium shots and occasional close-ups, and it's sung all right enough. The way they look at each other, it's clear that they're falling more and more in love, and I think she plays well enough in the idea of this woman hasn't really found that special someone, and she's been a little repressed even though she's seemingly confident at work, you know. But I think with him, like some elements I find kind of dull in his performance, like I said. And so I don't find myself particularly swept in by their romance, like really at all.
No, because I don't get an element of this is so exciting.
Yeah.
Which, again, when Nellie, I hate to keep harping on this, I hate to sound ageist, but when Nellie is a young upstart ingenue, there's a romanticism to this older established guy just by virtue of him knowing his way around the world. And just having them be two peers again robs the film of that interaction.
Yeah. And I don't know if you'll agree with this at all, but I notice after that scene when she goes to talk to Harry Connick Jr. and they kind of bantering and she's kind of like, is it weird, kind of weird being attracted to someone with such a different background as yours? Watching that scene, I was like, I feel like there's something here. Like, I feel like we got more sparks going on with this slightly older nurse and this young hotshot Marine. I felt a little more sparks here, you know?
I had the same thought
Yeah.
because again in the text of the show they're meant to be very like pretty close friends is the vibe I get.
Hmm.
Again, people at equal levels of having experienced the world, and they go on parallel journeys because Cable falls in love with this Polynesian girl, and he does not have the holdups that Nellie has, and he instead has to work the world around their relationship rather than vice versa for Glenn Close. So those narratives are meant to be in dialogue with each other for their oppositions. And again, it just doesn't work here with the casting and the way it's shot.
Yeah, and again, I see watching her arc just the kind of flip flopping to be just like so beneath what Glenn usually portrays. Like even in a role like Alex Forrest, where she's kind of like volatile emotionally, I believed that a lot more. Obviously, in that film compared to this, where she's kind of like she's being goofy Glenn and being like, I gotta wash that man right out of my hair, and dancing around with the nurses and playing with the shower and the water. But yeah, the just like the sort of girlish quality there, like she's having fun, but I don't really believe it watching her in a scene like that, unfortunately.
It feels like a diversion from her more presentational self. Like
Yeah.
you said earlier in the movie when she is talking to the troops and she feels like somebody who knows what she's doing, an established member of this regime. And wash that man right out of my hair feels like a momentary lapse in that presence. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
I think it's supposed to actually feel like this is her letting herself be free to be
Yeah.
the young girlish girl that she is, because again it segues right into I'm in love with a wonderful guy, which is a similar level of abandonment just in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. I think actually in that scene, like when she decides, oh, I'm actually might still be in love with him, the way she kind of sings about being corny and gay as a daisy in May and like dancing around like a goof, like she doesn't really have like that adorable innocence that is necessarily required for this, but she's clearly having so much fun that I can sort of forgive it. Just personally speaking, like she just seems like she's having the time of her life.
Yeah, Glenn feels like one of those actors who kind of like somebody like Hugh Jackman, where you can tell all they really want to do is sing and dance,
Yep.
and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna begrudge them too much doing projects like this, even if I don't think they're super right for it. But and I'll take that exuberance and
Mm.
that, frankly, song and dance ability over some of what I've seen in musical films that I feel less about.
Like what?
Oh, yeah, there's a few, I'm not gonna maybe
Got
name
any
names
examples
today.
for me? Yeah. Uh,
There's perhaps some people in a recent musical about witches didn't feel up to the task or
Into
appropriate
the
for the
Woods.
film. Uh-huh. Yeah,
That's what you
that
mean,
one.
right? Yep.
I mean, not no,
I'm
honestly.
just trying to avoid trigger words for anyone,
Yeah,
you know.
of course, of course. Mhm.
Yes. So yeah, we should definitely talk about this arc of her when she is introduced to his half Polynesian children, and she assumes automatically, oh, there must be someone else's. And when he confirms it to her that no, they're mine, just the face crack there, I think, is very excellently performed, I must say. Just like that internal panic and sort of confusion, and is just very quite visibly bothered and says like, "Oh, it's not because of the color of their skin. It's just." But
She was a surprise. I didn't expect there to be
yeah,
kids here at this party. Yeah.
yes, she didn't know that he even had kids, and so yeah, you can bet that she would not have this reaction if they were these nice blue-eyed white kids per se. And so yeah, I don't know even actually how much that is explored like up to that point for her to have that reaction. I don't know if that's an issue of the stage show in particular, but seeing her visible discomfort for me watching this just regularly sort of comes out of nowhere.
Well, I feel like again in the stage show, it's similarly not, from what I remember, not foreshadowed, I guess, her
Yeah.
bigotry,
Okay.
but it's is I think what I imagine the writers were going for, especially in 1949, was okay, the audience is gonna make some assumptions. She's a small town girl from Arkansas
Mm.
in the 40s, probably has lived a very sheltered life, probably has a very specific set of values and opinions.
Okay.
And I think the audience would not be surprised by that reaction in and of itself, but maybe surprised by the way she reacts specifically because of her relationship with the meal.
Mm.
Um, but again, in the movie, when that's not the case, it just feels kind of bad. Like it
Yeah.
just makes you go, oh, so she's a bad person. Got it. Okay,
Yep.
moving on. Again, not to excuse how she's written the show, because the point of the show is she learns that how she feels is wrong. But I don't think that the movie lays the foundation enough to make you care to see her get to that realization.
Right. That was my issue. And so she eventually kind of tries to explain her prejudice to a certain extent, like when she's talking to Cable about his interracial relationship. She's just straight up saying that she feels like interracial relationships never work, and just she's continuing to show her ignorance there. And she even suggests that, hey, it's born into you, like, you know, it's like you can't mix races, which is just like a wild thing to say, but it's also oddly enough makes sense as a way of sort of justifying your own prejudice, to be like, oh well, I can't help it, that's just kind of like part of me, part of my DNA. I was born with this racism, essentially. But I think, as I have frequently said on this show, Glenn is very good at playing women with conviction, and I believe that she has convinced herself that she believes racism is just a fact of life that is like really sucks. It's very unfortunate, but it's just human nature.
It makes more sense also when it's something that you can imagine her parents told her, and she's still young enough to have that be a truth because she hasn't had to face out in the world. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy that with Glenn, unfortunately. But I do think
Yeah.
she does her job. She sells the moment as well as she possibly could. There's just factors around her that are some out of her control, like the writing and the direction, that don't do her any favors here.
Right. And she mopes about it some more to one of the other older
It's so
nurses.
sad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who I believe is an invention, this random nurse that she talks to all the time.
I don't remember her being there.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
she needed a friend.
Yeah. Even saying she wants to like transfer so that she can be away from this whole situation. And this is where it really starts to lose me. You know, for as game as she is for like getting into the difficulties of the role and like playing someone who's clearly deeply prejudiced, but then she just again snaps out of it just from seeing this picture of herself that is like describing her as like a Florence Nightingale in the paper. That big of a shift like right away just feels very clumsily handled to me.
Yeah, it's classic musical second act problem where, oh, we have to get serious for a second, but we don't want to do it for too long, but it has to be dramatically compelling.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna cut, or we're not gonna have as many songs in the second half, which is maybe why you shouldn't make an entire movie out of an act two. So that hits the brakes of the narrative pretty hard here as well, and I
Yeah.
don't know if it earns the turn, the ability of the character to come to the realization. Because again, like I said, I rebounded like three times because I thought I missed something.
No, yeah, it is missing something. It's just you're not going to find it.
It just wasn't me. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Before we talk about the ending, do you want to talk any about Harry Connick Jr. and his subplot and with Liat and anything there?
Yeah, I mean, those songs are kind of skippers to me. Like I don't
Yep.
love the romantic songs. Younger Than Springtime is okay. But for the most part, it is there to their story is there to underline Nellie and Emil's
Yeah.
because you are supposed to compare the two. So they're really just there as a B plot. I think Harry Connick Jr. is fine. His voice sounds good. You know, he's good at singing. He's not really my favorite singer in the world, but he makes total sense for casting for
At that
this
time,
role, especially at
absolutely.
this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's just, yeah, I don't get all that much out of it that I don't get from most other of these kinds of romantic subplots in these kinds of films. So sadly, it doesn't really stand out.
Right. I'm sure it was revelatory in 1949 to see an
Yeah.
interracial relationship like this on stage, even in,
Hmm.
New York City. But yeah, it just is very much a B plot.
Yeah. And the rest of the film is Cable on this mission to spy on the Japanese ships and tracking their movements and giving the intel to the Americans, which more or less works out, except when he's running down the beach to escape this island and he steps on a landmine and dies.
I was gonna say it doesn't really work out for her, does it?
Yeah, it works out
Yeah.
briefly and then it doesn't.
This part on stage is almost entirely, understandably, off stage. It's almost
Yeah.
just told to you. And
Hmm.
I see why they've made it more, they expanded it visually because, like, why wouldn't you? But it's just not really that interesting to me. It's just a vague sort of mission, non-specific Japanese enemies there.
Yes, it reminds me a lot of like the vagueness of a Top Gun Maverick and the villains they were fighting there.
Yep.
Just like really kind of talking around it, making these very vague expositional statements about it.
Hmm.
You don't got to worry about it, essentially. And
Non-specific, non-offensive, not a
yeah,
real country. Don't worry about it. Here it
right.
is a real country, but it is non-specific in terms of like what's actually happening in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. But then I guess Nellie gets the redemption somewhat unfairly, I would say, by going to Emil's house, and she's kind of charming his children, and Emil accepts her essentially without any real discussion or acknowledgement of her being a prejudiced person, even though they have had the conversation about how she can't get past it. And now when he kind of just sees her playing with the kids, it's like, okay, it's actually fine. I
Yeah,
just
she's
think
being a
it's,
real good babysitter, so I guess she got over that racism.
yeah, I just think it's lazy storytelling that it all just kind of works out that she changed her mind on being racist, and then Emil just goes ahead and accepts that she's changed, to say nothing of the fact that she has shown up at his villa or whatever while he's away and tells his children that you're going to be seeing a lot more of me. Like, how do you know? The audacity of that.
That's your call to make?
Right.
It's a threat, actually.
Yes. You'll be seeing a lot more of me, children.
Hmm.
Very Cruella. Um,
Very.
yes. And I know what people might be saying in arguing about this, which is that this is the source material, that there is an arc to this, and she does change. To be clear, I think it's okay that, to have this kind of an arc to be centering on a prejudiced person who becomes less prejudiced, and people are capable of that change. I just don't think this film in this iteration really does the work to make us believe that that change has happened. So,
Right. I mean, the moment on stage at the end of the show is like kind of famous where they just silently grab hands. And it's
mhm,
quite powerful on stage because it's there is something to be said about unspoken moments, especially
yeah.
in like a loud thing like a musical.
Hmm.
But the way the film is staged and shot, it doesn't earn that type of gentleness, that type of subtle moment.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate because I can see the gerb of the idea here, and I think it could be quite powerful told differently, and
Hmm.
perhaps with different actors, and perhaps with a better emphasis on the actual music. So this version just does really not work for me. And so that's where I'm left with. It just feels like a lot of missed opportunities and a lot of poor decisions behind the scenes.
It's a shame because South Pacific feels like the type of show that should be not easy to translate to film, but would be served well by translating to film because you
Yeah.
can use real locations. Something like Sound of Music is similar, where it's you're never going to get a
Hmm.
better version on stage of Sound of Music as the movie, where you have Julie Andrews actually twirling on a mountain. You're never going to replicate that on stage. It's the opposite with South Pacific because the 50s movie is also not very good. They're obsessed with using these color filters in the original movie that is really just garish. It wants to be so beautiful that it works so hard towards that it becomes ugly somehow.
Hmm.
So it's a shame that we don't have a defining film version of South Pacific, and I kind of doubt we never will because it feels like very much a relic of a musical. And it works well on stage, like I said, but I don't think there's a good movie version of it.
Yeah. So, do we have any positives to say?
Like I said, I think Glenn does maybe some of the best work she possibly could do with this character, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really work. I did like Lori Tan Chin, who played Bloody Mary. I thought she was a like an exciting character and the way she or an exciting performance of the character. Again, the music sounds lovely. The
Yeah.
orchestrations are great. Overall, though, It's also just kind of boring. I usually hate to use that word when I'm critiquing something, but it really just does not have an exciting, propulsive energy to it.
Yeah.
Which is not to say it should be like faster necessarily or more upbeat, but it doesn't even have, like a sexual charge to the interactions between the two couples. Even though like there is a sex scene between
Mm.
Cable and Leah, I just don't really feel too excited by any of it.
Yeah, that's actually what I am feeling is that the lack of an engine kind of that is moving it forward in a very visceral way. I just don't really feel that it feels creaky.
I just remembered I had my mom record this on VHS when it first aired
Wow.
because being the musical loving person I am, even as a child, when I see there's going to be a big musical on ABC, I imagine is what
Yep.
it
Yep.
was,
Hmm.
I have to watch it. But it was past my bedtime. So I remember trying to watch it the next day and just being very bored and never finishing it. So thanks for giving me the chance to finally finish it.
Wow, you're so welcome. You should tell your mom that you finally watched it.
Actually might.
Yeah. Well, on that note, unless we had any other stray observations, we can move on to the release of both films.
Mhm.
So, first with The Ballad of Lucy Whipple. This was released on CBS on February 18th, 2001. Its lead in, I think very appropriately, was Touched by an Angel.
Yep. That
And, right?
just tune in next for Glenn Close. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Absolutely. Yes. Unfortunately, it was beaten in the ratings that night by The X Files and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Okay.
So, not quite a Sarah Plain and Tall style event like those movies were, but it did decently well, getting about 12 million viewers that night, which, like any network now, would be like, this is a
Yeah,
blockbuster.
exactly. I hear like, oh, it didn't do that well. Just 12 million people.
Relatively to
God,
2001. Yeah.
more than more than people, some people who live in most states, like that
Yes.
can fill
Right. Yeah.
several states right there.
And it got decent, mostly positive reviews, but nothing super over the moon, and it did not translate to any awards nominations. And then with South Pacific, that aired about a month later on ABC on March 26, 2001. So TV viewers were getting a double dose of Glenn in those early months of 2001. And this one was clearly more of an event, and it was the most watched program that night across all networks, beating
Wow.
beating CBS repeats of their sitcoms and some documentary series on NBC and new episodes of Boston Public and Ally McBeal. So, you
I'm
know,
kind of surprised to hear that.
yeah, Glenn beat her things you can tell just by looking at her co-star Callista Flockhart this one night.
Wow. And it was a Monday night. I'm looking
It's
at
a
the
Monday
calendar right
night.
now.
Yep.
Quite random. All right.
Yeah. And it got about 16 million viewers. Got mixed reviews from critics, with quite a few of them criticizing the rearranging of the songs, which we didn't really talk about. But did that offend you?
Not at all.
Okay, well,
Not at all. No, they cut one song called Happy Talk, which is, if you ask me, the worst song in the musical. I can see why they cut it. It's like kind
mhm,
of racially insensitive, I would say.
mm,
But otherwise, no, I don't see. I'm looking at the track list here. I don't see anything weird or super out of place. There's nothing like a Dame is not usually the opening. That's usually a little
yep.
bit middle of Act One, I believe. But I mean, I don't care.
I liked it as a big splashy kind of opening. So
That's exactly what they were going for. Yep.
yeah. And there was some criticism of Glenn's casting, feeling she was indeed too old for the role, but went on to receive 2 Emmy nominations for music direction and single camera sound mixing. So, not the most sexy categories, but you
What do you
know,
mean?
yeah. But in case you're curious, it lost the music direction award to Timeless Live in Concert, the Barbara Streisand special.
Okay. Well, who's
Yeah.
gonna argue with that? Not
And
me.
it lost sound mixing to Nuremberg, a
Okay.
miniseries, not to be confused with the Nuremberg movie that just came out with Russell Crowe, but essentially
All
covering
right.
the same topic. Everything old is new again.
Yep.
But anyway, this was a time when TV movies were still quite popular with audiences and even with awards, but these projects, while they were decently well watched, they didn't quite connect or have the staying power of others with critics or awards groups. Any thoughts on why neither of these really hit that way?
Well, I imagine their release date didn't help quite early in the year. And also, they just don't feel too consequential. Lucy Whipple feels very singular, and you don't really think about it much afterwards. I watched it less than a week ago, and I'm struggling to remember some parts of it. And South Pacific, I think the problem is the weight of expectations, where it's this great musical, and I'm sure it was advertised as
Oh yeah.
see a screen version of the greatest musical romance. You can use all the adjectives you want. It's a very famous musical. And I think it being just okay to maybe even considered bad would be made even worse by the disappointment of the expectations.
Yeah. I think they were both probably well liked by older audiences and maybe younger viewers in the case of Lucy Whipple, but this was around the time also when HBO and cable were really starting to come on strong. And by contrast, this sort of family friendly entertainment, it had its place, but I think it really kind of felt a bit out of fashion, at least again with critics and awards. And I just also don't think either of them really do quite enough to like transcend their genres to make them truly excellent.
Right. There's
Yeah,
nothing new here,
right.
but especially with Lucy Whipple.
Yeah. So unfortunately, both, I guess you could say neither really had perhaps the staying power that they had set out to make them as. Just as with Sarah Plain and Tall had a lot of staying power and a lot of obviously big event, TV movies. That's kind of what they were modeling after for South Pacific. Didn't quite get there, but we move on. She has more TV movies to come. So, yes, if you're ready, we can get to our last segment where we're going to rate Glenn's performance on a very specific scale. So, first, thinking about her performance in The Ballad of Lucy Whipple, would you say her performance as Arvella is such that she's ready for a close-up? Is it low Glenergy? Is it close but no cigar? Or a secret fourth category, is she serving in silence, which is to say, delivering a great supporting performance?
Ooh, serving in silence is intriguing. I initially was going to call this close but no cigar. I feel
Okay.
like it is a good performance, but maybe not. She doesn't have too much to do until later in the movie.
Yeah.
But I guess that may qualify her for serving in silence. But she's had smaller supporting performances, so I shouldn't waste it on that. This isn't Mary Riley, after all.
Certainly isn't. I
Mhm.
wish. But well, for me, she is borderline close but no cigar and serving in silence, leaning more towards serving in silence for me. I think she's having fun here. She is in a similar mode as Sarah Plain and Tall, and also by the end showing the layers of this woman, even though it's not her story. And in many respects, that is how you serve in silence as a supporting star, even though she's first billed and co-lead, quote unquote. But
Mhm.
to me, it's not her story.
I mean, she's not the title character, so it's not her song to sing.
Wow. Well said. Well,
Mhm.
speaking of songs to sing, what do we think of her songs to sing in South Pacific?
This is low energy. I'm sorry. She's doing what she can, I think, but and maybe it's more the direction, but ultimately I do not regard this as one of Glenn's great performances. I do have a letterbox list ranking all her performances I've seen, and this is maybe
Oh,
second or third lowest. So sorry, Glenn.
I did not know you had that list. I will be. Is it private?
No, you can look at
Okay,
it, Kevin.
I gotta look.
Yeah,
Jeez.
judge all you want.
Yes. This I am sad to say is also a rare low Glenergy for me. One of those rare Glenn misses, where I can see her passion for it, but it doesn't quite translate for me to a fully successful performance. And maybe the naming of low Glenergy is like kind of like she's putting in a lot of energy. It's just not perhaps the right Glenergy we're looking for at this stage
It's
of her
not
career.
generating Glenergy. I'm not feeling powered. I'm feeling tired.
Sure. There you go.
I feel like you haven't given out a lot of low energies from what I've
I
heard.
have not. No.
Okay, interesting.
So, you
Honored to
know,
be here for one of the few.
yeah, I think I started with World According to Garp saying that
hmm
that was ready for her close up, right?
I believe
So,
so. I'd probably say the same thing. Yeah.
yeah. So there are highs and lows, and she is not necessarily this untouchable star where everything she does is going to be close but no cigar or ready for a close up, but that's perfectly okay. That's part of being a star. And it's actually more interesting, I would say, to have these hills and valleys.
If you want to have the rainbows, you gotta have the rain, as Dolly Parton said. It's her 80th birthday today. That's why I'm saying that.
Wow. Beautifully
Yeah.
said.
Thank you.
Might as well end on that note, right?
Okay.
Cody, this was so fun. Love talking with you about quite literally any movie, really, based on what we talked about today.
You know, I'll
we
watch
have fun no
anything,
matter
yeah.
what. You really will watch anything, to your credit. So thank you, as always, for doing your homework and coming with the takes. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. I always like chatting with you on the microphone.
Yeah. Well, where can people find more of you on the internet?
I'm on every social media platform at CodyMonster91. You can find my writing and podcasting at Next Best Picture and Awards Watch. At Next Best Picture, I interviewed Glenn Close recently for Wake Up Dead Man, so listeners may want to check that out. I got a lovely 8 minutes with Glenn. She was floating in a black void Zoom background somewhere in Berlin, and we actually talked about a lot of her different characters throughout her career. I asked her what of her filmography, which characters would be most or least likely to get along with her Wake Up Dead Man character. So she had some fun responses to that, looking back at her career. And I have my own horror movie podcast, Halloweeners. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, and we're on social media at Halloweeners Pod.
Very good. And this does technically mean that I am a degree away from Glenn Close. Having talked to you and you having talked to Glenn, that interview is coming soon. I swear.
Absolutely.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Better.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much for listening. You can find me at Kevin_Jacobsen on Twitter and Instagram, just Kevin Jacobsen on Blue Sky. You can listen to my Oscar-themed podcast, and the runner-up is for coverage of every single Best Actress race, including quite a few great ones with Cody here. That's And the Runner-Up is on all platforms, and to keep up with The World According to Glenn on social, follow The Glenn Pod. Rate, review, and follow The World According to Glenn on all platforms, and with that, I bid you all adieu.